Hello and welcome back to another episode of Inside the Clinch. We've been doing this show for a little bit less than a year now, and we had some spectacular guests on our show. But today is very different because we have our very first UFC fighter on the line. And what makes it even more special is that she's one of our favorite fighters. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the number 14 ranked female flyweight in the world, Miranda Fear the Maverick. Miranda, thank you so much for joining us today. Before we get started, I know that you're recently engaged, so we wanted to congratulate you on behalf of Inside the Clinch.
Yeah, thank you very much. To be honest, it wasn't a huge surprise in terms of being asked, but the timing of it and the day that it happened was a surprise. So very exciting time in our lives. And of course, if anybody follows me at all, they know we're also moving to Colorado soon. A bunch of changes coming up, a bunch of events that are hard to keep track down, and everybody keeps asking about wedding planning and stuff, but that's going to be a little while down the road.
That's awesome. Do you guys have a date yet or not yet?
I don't have a date. I don't really even know what season we're going to have it in. So we're fine with a longer engagement, which is probably what it's going to be like next fall or something. I don't know.
Well, that's pretty exciting regardless.
Thank you.
All right, so let's get your thoughts on your last fight against Maycee Barber. I thought it was really clear that you won the fight. You walked down Maycee Barber from the first round, second, and pretty much all three rounds. You walked her down, and the total strikes at the end of the fight were 82-38. What were your thoughts on the outcome now that you've had a few weeks to process it?
Kind of the same as they were the same night that I fought. I rewatched the fight now probably close to 20 times. Analyzing it from every perspective, analyzing one round at a time. I think that round 3 was closer going back and forth than round 2 was. I think round 2 was pretty close until about the last minute and a half. And I think that clearly dominated the round. Plus it was at the end of the round. You'd think that was what matters the most, I took her back. I threatened a submission. I punched her way more than she punched me, even in the second round. I landed more significant strikes. I got a cleaner takedown. Even when she took me down, I flipped it and reversed it on her. It didn't even count as a takedown. I don't know what anybody was watching. It makes me wonder if they confused who was who. It makes me wonder, if they were sleeping. It makes me wonder if there was favoritism. There's so many that go through my mind, that are questions that I want to be answered, all the way down to why did Macey get her family to be there when I wasn't allowed to have tickets for my family, just things like that get pretty irritating. And yeah, of course, I don't think I should have lost the fight, but it's water under the bridge now. What really matters is that I didn't get paid half of the win money. But they always say don't let it go to the judges, and haters will just keep commenting that on my stuff. And I'm like, yeah, okay, we'll get in there and you do it, and we'll see if you can not make it go to the judges. It probably won't, because you'll get knocked out in the first round.
Yeah, just to follow up on that, I read somewhere that 22 of 22 media analysts basically scored the fight for you. And that bad judging has been like a frequent concern and something that Eric and I talk about very frequently. So what's your thoughts on the whole judging in the UFC, all the mistakes that's been happening recently, and especially with your recent fight with Maycee Barber?
I think I have the same concerns as all the fans do, and also the same advice. There is the 22 out of 22, like you said, and every person who analyzed the fight on YouTube, from, a casual that sat at home watching it to somebody who's an actual analyst, I think they all scored it for me. The only people who say that Macey won are either her strong supporters, because what else are they going to say? And people who didn't really watch the fight or had so much money riding on Macey, of course, they're going to support that way. Even fans of Macey, message me and were like, hey, like I was a fan of Macey before this, but now I'm a fan of you with the way you handled it. And that means a lot. As far as the judging, of course, there are just some judges that should not be sitting there. I think it should not be boxing judges. It should not be kickboxing judges. It shouldn't be any sports, any people that have never done the sport. I think it needs to be either old refs of MMA or MMA fighters themselves. However, there is the concern of, well, it's a job application, right? Of course, you want the most qualified employees, but are those qualified employees applying for the job?
Right.
I don't know any MMA fighters myself that go to try to become judges. So I think we need to seek them out more, to go apply to the commissions and be like, hey, like you used to be an amateur fighter. It didn't work for you, but now, you're running your daughter's baseball team. You want to go apply to be a rep or a judge. I really think they'd do a better job if they've ever fought MMA and understand the ground game and the stand-up game and, go to judge. I think we just need somebody in there that understands every aspect of it, because these unfair things, even this past weekend, I don't know if you saw, but it got scored the right way in terms of the right person won the fight.
Fiziev and Green, you're about to say, right?
Yeah, and the one judge scored the last round for whichever one wasn't winning, of course, and a 2-year-old could have sat down and been like, oh, he's gotten beat up, and somehow he scored it for him. It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, that's actually something John Anik said. He said that if he were to gather like 100 second graders, they would score the fight properly as opposed to the judges. I have no idea what they were looking at, but it was clear that Bobby Green won that round.
Yep. It's painful.
I'm surprised, as far as the sport's gone already, that we haven't broken out from the boxing commission. I feel like all of our judges, referees, they come from the same, boxing commission. I feel like until we break out from boxing and MMA is two separate commissions, I feel like these kind of mistakes are going to continue happening, unfortunately. But to pivot a little bit, so wanted to get your thoughts on what it's like fighting in the Apex now that you had some fans in there. I know it's not the same as a full arena and a packed out venue, but I feel like earlier in your career, you fought in a completely empty Apex. Now, at least the second time around, you had a few fans in there.
I wouldn't have been able to tell you there was anybody there. I know there was like a few bleachers there with people in them. There was such a few amount, you don't even notice. Like if you already have cameramen there and production team, there's already probably 100 people purely for that portion of it. And just to add a couple hundred, like it means nothing. Not like there's roaring or your name being chanted or, people slapping your hand as you walk down. I think that's where the unreal experience that only the UFC can give comes from. And unfortunately, they're not moving out of the Apex to do that yet. But I am looking forward to a bigger card where I can have a crowd. I've never gotten to experience that really. I honestly don't think it's going to affect my fight one way or another. I have enjoyed being able to hear my coaches. I'll say that. I listen as good as I can, even though there's times where I don't. But when you're in a fight with a huge crowd, it gets harder to hear them.
So Miranda, how did you get into the sport of MMA?
It started as self-defense. Today's my dad's birthday, so shout out to him.
Happy birthday to your dad.
Thank you. He's kind of the one that got me into it. He was always very protective and wanted his children to have some form of self-defense, be able to kind of handle ourselves, which, that's not the end all be all. I can't beat up a 300-pound man if he attacks me, or 200-pound or whatever. Like, I believe other forms of self-defense, which we won't get into because that'll start a whole political debacle. But I started jiu-jitsu because at home we would wrestle around, watch the UFC. And when I say wrestle around, it's not like most kids in their family is like they just grab dad, try to take him down. Like, we learned actual techniques. We learned heel hooks. We learned arm bars. We learned chokes. Would watch YouTube and UFC fights and like pause them and rewind them and put them on quarter speed and see how people do things. And we would learn on each other. And so when I got old enough, I decided I wanted to go to a gym and actually delve into jiu-jitsu more. And I always said I never wanted to fight. My dad, I was sitting on the sofa with him at like 14 years old watching the first Ronda Rousey fight in the UFC. And I was like, oh my goodness, girls do this? I had no idea, really. I didn't know that females fought until she fought in the UFC. My dad was like, yeah, you could do that one day. You could be world champion. And I was like, no, I don't want punched in the face. And I stuck by that for a while until I started to get into the sport myself and watched a couple of amateur females fight. And I was like, wow, I probably can do this and at least beat these amateur girls, no problem. Like, I'm stronger than them. I can punch better than them. And I haven't even had training yet. And so I started and just worked my way up the ladder very fast, decided I was going to go be the best I could be once I had my first fight.
Was there, I know you mentioned Ronda Rousey, but was there anybody that you looked up to coming up in MMA aside from her?
I mean, a lot of people, not necessarily females, right? So Ronda Rousey, of course, like any woman that says she wasn't a pioneer of women's MMA or that they didn't look up to her at some point, either weren't watching MMA or had no ground game aspirations, whatever the case may be. But because I started in jiu-jitsu, yeah, I was like, oh my goodness, what she does is amazing, right? Mm-hmm. But George St. Pierre has always been my all-time favorite. He probably always will be my all-time favorite. Just the way he handles himself, the way he continues to handle himself. I used to read his book before every fight. I think it's called Why I Fight. And I just love how he takes on fighting.
Do you think Ronda Rousey be considered the female GOAT in MMA?
So I have this thing I like to say, that there's never a GOAT. It changes every day, every second, right, of every sport. Because you can't ever say with the evolution that the sport continues to have and with the youth that this sport is in, there's never a GOAT. We're always improving. You know, these girls who are getting to start MMA, literally, like having access to gyms that teach MMA at the age of 8 on, they're going to be way better than me or somebody else who started in their mid-20s, or myself that started at 18. There's Kay Hansen that started when she was like 12. You know, like there's these people that just keep ranking up in their evolution, keep learning these new tactics and new techniques and have longer to go. And it's just going to always be better. Now, was she the GOAT of her time and day? Absolutely. Was she a pioneer of women's MMA? Absolutely. You can say she was the GOAT of her time. Then there was Holly Holm, you know, in certain weight classes. Then there's Nunes. Then there's, you know, Valentina. It's always going to change. And you can see that in the male divisions even more so because they've been more consistent over time.
So who would you like to fight next, and how soon would you like to make a return? You're currently ranked number 14. I think you got a lot of great matchups in the flyweight division.
Yeah, there's so many. I'm honestly not going to be picky at this point. You know, regardless of what we want to say, I did lose that last fight. And I'm going to take that as a cue to make my career better. I think I need to get paid more for being in the top 15, especially if I'm going to be fighting top 10 and, you know, keep working my way up. I'm probably one of the lowest paid out of all the top 15 in the whole UFC, just because I'm not very far into my UFC career. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, a lot of it depends on how many fights you've had. You know, I'm 3 fights in. I guarantee whatever Macey won from winning that fight was 5 times as much as I would have made winning the fight. I don't know that. I can't say that 100%, but I can say she made at least double. Like that's no question, right? So I want to be able to fight maybe a couple girls that aren't in the top 15 even, or maybe the lower 5. I don't know. And fight a couple of them, work my way up my contract, get paid a little more, and then jump head first, have a couple more fights under my belt, and be just ready to push these girls in the top 15, top 10.
Is the Maycee Barber fight something you want to get back in the future, or is that something you're going to sweep?
I have zero doubt we're going to see each other again. I had zero doubt before we even fought. Regardless of who won that fight, we're going to see each other again. We're both young. We're both the future of the division. Whether it's us both ranked number 4, number 5, which is where I thought we should have fought at the time, we'll see each other again, no doubt. You know, you look at our rankings, nothing changed after a fight. That's what's hilarious to me. That was a stagnant fight, just like I said it was going to be. Regardless of which one of us won, all that's going to happen is we're going to keep flip-flopping who's 13, 14.
I was surprised. I thought the rankings weren't updated yet, but yeah, I noticed that as well. You guys pretty much stayed the same exact spot since going into the fight.
Yeah, and they're like, well, Miranda was number 13. Yeah, I was 1 week, and then they changed Macey to the other week. Like, it just kept bouncing back and forth. And who knows, there will probably be a couple flyweight fights. I might get bumped down to 14, or I'm sorry, 15. Like, you never know. But I'm hoping to get back in the cage to give you that point. I've directed who I wanted to fight. But when I want to get into the cage, it'll be close to end of November. As you know, I'm moving to Denver. I want to get used to my team out at Team Elevation. I don't want to take a two-week notice fight without even knowing who's going to corner me. I want to be able to get back in absolute phenomenal shape and work with a team out there and know my coaches and trust those coaches when I jump into the fight. So I'm thinking, you know, a couple weeks to get my bearings and then enough time for a full camp. And then we'll be ready to rock and roll.
So on top of being a phenomenal fighter, I'm aware that you were also a student. You have your PhD. I myself am a student, so I'm just wondering.
I don't have my PhD. I'm actually, so I have to keep updating people because I was going for my PhD. That part's true. So I'll just stop you to give the audience the true aspect of what's happening. I was given an ultimatum about 4 months ago whether I wanted to pursue my PhD or MMA by the school, by the program. I shouldn't even say the school because I'm not mad at the school. I'm mad at my program. So I decided to just finish up my master's. And of course, I lost motivation after that. I'm quite resentful towards them, but I won't express that all until I get done with the schooling, to be honest. But I will finish my thesis this semester. It looks like it keeps dragging on because I lost all my motivation. But I'll have my master's, and I also have a part-time job right now as a contracted employee for Hershey, and then fighting.
Yeah, well, regardless, even getting your master's is a huge accomplishment when you have such a busy schedule being an MMA fighter. So how has that impacted your life outside of MMA?
I'm busy. I don't have the same social lives as other people seem to have, and I like it that way. I've never been really the type to go off and like goof off, I guess you'd say, or go spend a bunch of money doing stuff like traveling and things like that. I figure I'll hustle now while I'm young, and then I'll have 95% of the rest of my life to go do what I want, and prepare myself to where I have passive income and things of that sort in the future. So working on investing my money and getting that stuff smart. But, even the relationship I'm in and, now I'm engaged, like that was a hard road for both of us. Relationships are hard with what I'm doing. And that was where COVID was a blessing for me and him. But we like met each other and were able to spend time with each other when there would have never been a chance to do that. Like even now, like we joke about it. If we met each other now, there's no way we'd be together because it's like, I guess I'll see you in 2 weeks. Like I don't, but life's hard. I prioritize what I can. I have a little planner, like an old woman that I write my stuff down into for every 30-minute segment. And even then I miss appointments. Hence I was late to this.
That's awesome. I mean, the hard work is definitely paying off. Like your education is on point, your fighting skills are on point, and you just look like you're grinding and it's all paying off.
Thank you.
So I'm going to drift a little bit off your career. We just had Derek Lewis and Cyril Gane fighting. And the fight to make right now is obviously the fight with Gane and Francis Ngannou. So I just wanted your opinion. Who do you think is going to win that fight if it were to happen?
So I'll be honest, I did not watch the fights this weekend, so I didn't get to see it live. Gane seems very athletic. He rose very fast within the sport, even without really that much experience, which is amazing. He's a true athlete, truly talented. I like Ngannou, like I've met him in person and just really like his personality. Gane could be the same way, I have no idea. So I always usually ride with the people I know as people. So I hope Ngannou wins. I also don't like the whole UFC stance against him because he didn't want to take a fight in 2 months, and decided to have an interim belt. I've never seen an interim belt that quickly.
Yeah, that was ridiculous.
I think it's just they don't like him now because he went from being super humble and doing whatever they wanted to kind of demanding more. And as we know, UFC doesn't care for that too much.
How scary is Francis in person, I gotta ask?
Oh my goodness. So that's a funny question. My dad's a pretty big guy, and there's only a few people that he looks at and he's like, oh my goodness, but Francis is like built, right? He's not only big, he's not only tall, but even like cutting weight, he's just so massive. Like it's like looking, like I joke, it's like looking at a bull out in a field and just being like, what are they feeding that thing? It's just crazy. He's a very large human and very like his voice is really deep and everything. So even when he talks to you, you're like, wow, you're really nice, but I'm still kind of scared of you.
Couldn't be a nicer guy though.
He seems like such a sweet guy though. He's like a big teddy bear.
Yeah, he's very nice when I spoke with him.
So we have the champion in your division, Valentina Shevchenko, defending her belt at the end of next month against Lauren Murphy. How do you see that fight playing out?
I think I see it playing out the same way everybody thinks. I think Lauren Murphy, for her to have gotten this fight, I don't know. I'm not that threatened by many of the girls, even in the top 10 of the division right now. There's about 3 that I think are worthy of being there. and the rest are pretty stagnated there. I am pretty disappointed that Lauren Murphy fought somebody that had never even fought in the UFC. And then, you know, a fight after that, she gets a title shot. I don't think that's exactly a great showing, but it is what it is. And what else are they going to do? You know, they're just trying to keep it busy, keep Valentina busy. And, you know, the top 1, the 2, the 3, the 4, they all keep going under. So I guess they'll just keep making it down. Maybe I'll get a shot in a few times, just being number 14.
Yeah, I know you're a few fights away from that, but I have to ask you, how do you see yourself matching up with someone like Valentina Shevchenko?
I think let me get my peak, you know, give me a year, let me keep getting better. She is superior of almost everyone in the striking, and you can see that people are intimidated when they go in. I think more of it's a mental game than it is a physical game with her. You know, all these girls walk in and you can tell by their interviews, you can tell by their literal nonverbal cues, they're scared, or they're like, I'm just honored to fight you. I'm like, that is not how you go in to win a fight.
Mm-hmm.
You can say that after the fight. You can act like that after the fight. You do not go into a fight like, oh, I'm just so excited to fight you. Like, no, I'm in there to hurt you. Like, that's all there is to it. And you have to train that way. And I take my training as if I'm fighting Valentina every day. You know, I don't try to train like I'm fighting number 12 or like I'm fighting Maycee Barber. I train like I'm getting ready to fight Valentina. And that's how I get better every time. I go into every fight camp as if I lost the last fight, whether I did or not.
Miranda, thank you so much for joining us. I don't know if you have anything you want to share with the audience before we wrap it up.
Just thank you for having me. Everybody go check out my website. It's fearthemaverick.net. Brand new stuff out, actually. I just updated the site too, so it's a little cleaner and nicer. So thank you for having me, though. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Miranda.
Can't wait to see you back in there.
And we wish you the best of luck. We hope to see that fight with Shevchenko very soon.
Yeah, me too.